Recording in progress.
Right. Welcome everybody. Happy Thursday. My thought for you, or the pose that we're doing tonight, actually, so it's a thought and a pose. The pose that we are working with tonight is, oh God, my brain just did that thing where I totally forgot the Sanskrit. Bow pose.
Oh.
Bow pose. Yes, it'll come to me later. So my thought is a little bit of, cute. So when we say bow pose, we mean like a bow and arrow type of thing, right? It's a little bit of cute of the week of Valentine's Day being the little Cupid's bow. And there is a, adorable Cupid story, of course, yogic story, that involves Cupid being burned to ashes. So that's what's fun about it. But the idea behind the bow metaphor in a lot of yogic stories is that the bow represents our mastery over the mind. Right? It represents the meditation practice. It represents our ability to actually harness this energy that is our thinking, that is our physical kind of embodiment, is our ability to harness it. So the bow is kind of another just way of coming back to acknowledging that this practice is not to try to eradicate or dim or do anything to this physical form that would make it less than what it is, right? But what we do have the opportunity to do, and what's inherent in that story, that little Cupid story that I mentioned, is that the mind also has the ability to see things at various levels, right? And if we let it always rest at the lowest place that it can be, like the easiest place for it to be, then we never get to experience what is beyond that, right? So the idea is that by this harnessing of the mind, or this harnessing of that energy, is that we allow the mind to expand beyond its own perceived limitations, right? And that's what meditation does, is it gives us the opportunity to expand our awareness, expand the mind beyond its own perceived limitations. And that's when we start to actually be able to live more in ourselves, because we're no longer seeing things in only one limited, easiest, lowest common denominator way, right? So that's the yogi's mind, is the one that is expanded in that way. And how do we do it? Meditation. How do we work with that, the harnessing of that mind energy, so that it is directed towards that bigness instead of its smallness, right? So the bow is just sort of a metaphor for this, is how we learn to harness that energy, not try and eradicate it, destroy it, get rid of it, none of that, right? We learn to become the master of it. So comfortable seat if you're not there already. Let the eyes close for a moment. And bring the awareness to the space between the eyebrows, so the third eye, Ajna chakra. And you can imagine that point between the eyebrows as you could draw that line, right? Just like a bullseye. If you could draw that line straight back into the center of your head. So it's like you're actually bringing your attention to the center of your brain. Bring your awareness there. And again, if that feels really hard to do, just keep it there at the center of the forehead. And as you're breathing, just keep sending your breath there. So the inhale, you bring the breath up and into that point. And as you exhale, follow the breath out the nostrils, front of the face, 6 to 9 inches if you can. So following it with your awareness, and then breathe in from that point out in front of you, all the way up and in, that internal space of the eyebrows of the brain, and then exhaling all the way out. Again, following the breath with your attention as far out as you can. But 6 to 9 inches is said to be that edge of our own personal field, right? So look for that. Breathe in, back up to the space of the third eye, and breathe out beyond the nostrils. Good. And again, this is just for a moment to stimulate maybe what we could call the deeper parts of the mind. So not the surface level thinking, but the part that is able to see beyond duality. This is the third eye, right? A place where what used to be two things in opposition become one thing in unity. We say where what you can see is more of what is the fundamental truth to any situation. And this is the part of the story with the little Cupid character, is that he's burned to ashes by Shiva, who opens his third eye. And when Shiva's eye opens, is all that can be seen is the truth. That's all the third eye sees, the truth. So when he opens his third eye and looks at this Cupid figure, Kama, his physical form is incinerated, burned to ashes. And what is that physical form? Desire. base desire, right? The idea of lust versus unconditional love. But by the end of the story, through a lot of pleading and conversation about how necessary desire is for life to continue, is Shiva restores Kama's life, but his form is now invisible. He's no longer that physical embodied being. He's now this sort of spirit. But the truth of what he always was underneath desire is that connecting force, connecting energy that is love. So what your mind sees, what your mind believes is real, what your mind believes is true can change. And what you're looking at might not have shifted at all, but the mind is able to perceive higher and higher and higher levels of truth. And that's why we practice. So for yourself, to be able to look at your own self, your own life through that perspective, what is really true, not what's easy to believe, but what's really true. You're then able to shed all of that surface level that just holds us down, feels confining. Maybe also feels comforting, and that's where we sometimes hesitate. It's crazy to imagine feeling unbound. So instead, just ride the breath. The breath is already free. And take one more deep breath in. And then as you exhale the breath all the way out, you can release your visualization, bring your hands together in front of your heart center, palm to palm. We'll open sound of Om, deep breath in. And let the eyes float open. Nice, you guys. So you can release your hands from in front of your heart center. I hope that pranayama got you just a little bit high. And then you can come forward onto hands and knees. If it didn't, no worries, but maybe it gave your mind a place to kind of cycle into steadiness. Come onto hands and knees, please. Good, and just let yourself start to shift forward and back in that tabletop position, just letting your weight fall forward towards the front of the wrists and then letting your hips fall back towards your heels a little bit. So just rocking forward and back. Good. Nice. If it feels good to take your hips all the way back to your heels, almost like you're dropping into a little child's pose, you can go for that. Good. Nice. And then continue to move though. So don't stay in the child's pose. Let yourself fall back, hips to your heels, but then come forward again. And again, just keep with that rocking. Just warming up a little bit. So bow pose is a pretty big back bending pose, but it requires a lot of the active energy of the legs and the shoulders to make it happen, right? So the back is absolutely working, but what keeps us there is that connection typically of the hands at the ankles, right? So if the quads, the front of the thighs are very tight, the front of the pelvis is very tight, then when we try to come into the pose, as we end up just yanking, we pull too hard. The knees don't like it. Lower back doesn't like it. Shoulders don't like it. Good. So next time your hips come all the way back to your heels, stay there. Let your hands walk forward a little bit more. Notice I didn't say widen your knees. Keep your knees pointing straight ahead. Good. Press into the tops of your feet. Again, arms are just extended forward. So it's kind of like a narrow child's pose or a bowing Virasana. Good. Nice, you guys. Then press into your hands, lift your armpits just a little higher. Feel your forearms lift up off the floor. Nice. You got it. Just one more breath so you feel that whole line from your wrists all the way to your tail. Good. And then go ahead and walk yourself up onto hands and knees. Good. Walk your hands forward a little bit. So now your hips are stacked in line with your knees. Walk your hands forward so they're in front of your shoulders, like you're in a modified down dog almost. Good. So your hips are energetically drawing up and back, but you're not letting your hips fall towards your heels. So you're just maintaining that position of hips in line with your knees. And then either up on fingertips, or you can keep the hands flat, start to cat-cow your spine, but your arms are extended a little further in front of you. So you can move the hands wider, especially if the shoulders or chest feel like they're a little bit restricted. Move your hands wider. Good. And again, you don't want your hips falling forward and back here. You want yourself to stay in that extended spine and then move through that cat and cow position. Good. So really go for that sensation of, especially on the inhale, feeling the back of the heart lift up between the arms. Nice, you guys. Good. And keep pressing down through the hands. You're getting that stretch through the arms as well as the shoulders. We don't often think about stretching the arms themselves. Good. Nice. And then slowly come to stillness again. Please walk your hands back in so that you're underneath, hands are underneath your shoulders. And then come on down to your forearms. Good. Nice. You can either keep the palms flat or turn the hand so that you can interlace your fingers and make a little cup with your hands. It's a little bit softer or easier on the shoulders to make the cup with your hands. Press down through the length of your forearms. Again, draw up through your lower rib cage and then step your feet back into a forearm plank. Yep, forearm plank. Good. So your hips should be level with the floor or level with your shoulders. So drop your hips lower. As your hips drop lower, start to lift your collarbones higher. That's how that works, right? Press down and drag backwards on your elbows. So it should feel like you're trying to pull your elbows towards your feet as you pull your chest towards your fingertips. Nice, Aparna. Good, you guys. Again, tilt those pelvic bones forward towards the top of your mat. So almost like you're tucking your tail. Nice. And then lift the chest just a little higher. Excellent, you guys. Nice job. And then go ahead and release the knees down to the floor. Walk your hands up back underneath the shoulders, hands and knees. Now you're all warm. Stretch your right arm out wide to the right. Good. Slide that right arm behind your left wrist. Right shoulder finds the floor. Thread the needle. Walk your left arm forward towards the top of your mat. Good. Again, your choice how straight you take the arm. The more you keep the elbow bent, maybe the more access you have to really stacking the shoulder open and feeling that twist through your ribs. Good. Keep equal weight in both shins. That's it. Nice, you guys. Good. And then stretch the left arm up to the sky if you can. Turn the palm to face back, bend your elbow, reach around to find your outer right hip. Or if that feels like a little too much rotation, then just place the left hand to your lower back. Good. And then press your lower back up into your hand. Yeah, so you have something to, again, push into. Good. Nice, you guys. Unwind that arm, please. Come all the way back up onto hands and knees. Good. And then stretch the left arm out wide to the left. Slide that arm behind the right wrist. Left shoulder finds the floor. Turn your gaze. Walk the right arm in front of you. Again, any amount towards straight. Good. It is very typical that with this metaphor of the bow that Shiva is often involved in some way. Why? Because he's considered the Lord of meditation. He's the one who is always in that perfect state of awareness, even when he's interacting in the world, which usually is not his choice. He's usually bullied into it. But even when he's interacting in the world, he's always in that state of equanimity. His mind is able to stay in that state. And that's what we reach for as well, is to be able to be in the world, but not be confused by the world. Stretch that right arm up to the sky. Turn the palm back, reach around to find that outer left hip, or again, placing the palm to the lower back if that feels like it's a nicer feeling of rotation on your shoulder. Good. If you have your hand flat on the back, press your sacrum up into the hand. So again, you have a little pressure there. Press into both shins equally. Nice. Good, you guys. And then slowly unwind the arm. Please walk yourself back up to hands and knees. Good. Walk your hands back so you can take your hands to your hips, please. So you're in a high kneeling position. Good. Hips lifted off of your heels, so you're all the way up. Yeah, hands can stay at the hips. Actually, no, I want you to take your hands to your lower back. They could stay at your hips, but I want them at your lower back. So widen the elbows, palms flat to the lower spine, fingers pointing down towards your tail. Good. So it's like you're setting up for camel, but you're not coming into a full camel. So it is your choice again to either keep the toes untucked, feet flat to the floor, or tuck the toes under if that feels like it's more supportive. Good. So as you're pressing your hands into your sacrum, press your sacrum back into your hands. So the tops of your thighs are going to move back. Your inner groins are going to roll towards the midline of your body and back. So feel like you're rolling your thighs in and then lift from below your belly button, just zip up. So it feels like you're connecting the front of the body to the spine. Good, but the tops of your thighs are still moving back. Nice. You feel your sacrum pressing into your hands, hug your elbows towards each other. Nice. Now maintain this. Nice long spine. You're not arcing back at all. Straight up and down. Pull your ribs in. Now hinge back. So body stays in that same position, but you hinge backwards, like you're moving the angle of your body towards the wall behind you. So it's a hinge. Your butt should move slightly back towards your heels, but you want to keep that same straight line. Don't push the hips forward. Don't pop the ribs forward, and then come all the way up. I know. Do that a couple of times. Go into that hinge, focusing on keeping the tops of the thighs moving back, keeping your navel drawn in, ribs in. I know this is not camel. Come all the way back up. Yeah, your thighs are suddenly on fire. Good. Do it a couple more times. And burn away the external form. Good. Couple more times. If this is not usually what you feel when you go into camel, we'll get there when that's the focus of the class. Yeah, but get your quads to work. I know. Do it one more time. Nice. And then come all the way back up. Excellent. Take the hands to the floor, please. You could drop your hips all the way back to your heels. Drop your forehead to the floor. Reach your hands back to find your ankles or your feet, so you're holding on to something. Good. And then roll up onto the crown of your head, lifting your hips, rounding into your back. Good. So you feel yourself pulling up through the whole front of the body. So you get really round in the backs of your shoulders. Nice. You get a little bit of that stretch through the neck. Again, what we tend to do in bow pose or any back bending is that we crane the neck too far, pushing the chin forward. So get into the length of the back of your throat. Good. And then release the hips back down to your heels. Walk yourself up onto hands and knees. Excellent. And then come back to downward facing dog. Tuck the toes, hips to the sky. Good. Pedal the feet if you'd like. Good. When Shiva himself is not involved in a story, it is often his bow that needs to be mastered in order for something to be achieved. Good. And let the heels soften towards the floor, find steady. Nice. Right leg up and back behind you, down dog split. Good. Keep your hips lifted, but bring your right knee in towards your chest. So you're not letting your armpits come forward over your wrists. You're just squeezing your right knee in towards your chest. Butt is still super high, left thigh moving back. Good. Stretch the right leg back behind you again, back to that split position. Good. Keep your hips pulling up and back this much. Now pull that right knee forward towards your chest again. Good. Keep pressing your butt back. Yes. And then extend that leg all the way back and up. Good. One more time. Pull it forward, squeeze it in, keep your hips lifted and up. Don't let those armpits come forward, Ken. Push them back. That's it. And then extend that right leg all the way to straight. Good. With the leg straight, stack the right hip on top of the left. So open. Good. Now draw the low belly in so you feel the connection of the thigh into the pelvis and bend your right knee, keeping that. Good. Now feel like you're extending the tip of your knee further back. So as you take that stretch, you're not pushing through the thigh, but you're extending through the knee. Good. Lifted and stacked. Good. Point the knee down towards the floor, please. Step the right foot between the hands. Lunge. Good. Drop the back knee to the floor. Use a blanket if you'd like. Anjaneyasana. Good. Inhale the arms to the sky. Nice. Press down through that front heel. Take your hands to the front thigh. So as you push forward through the thigh, round into your low belly and your back. So actually push the thigh away as you lift your hip points up. Good. Squeeze the front heel towards the back knee. Nice. And now maintain that as you let your hips move forward just a little bit more. Let your knee track towards the tips of your toes, but keep your heel anchored. Good. Now stretch the arms all the way up alongside the ears. Good. Bend your elbows out wide to cactus arms. Good. Take those inner elbows slightly forward. Draw your armpits wide. And now lift your chest a little higher, throat a little longer. Good. Now let your hands fall back. Nice. Now lift your throat a little longer and let your head fall back. Good. And now let your hands fall back and lift your chest straight up to the sky. You got it, Lisa. Good. And then come all the way back up. That was nice, Christine. Let the hands come back down to the floor. Good. Lift your back knee, please. Excellent. And then step back, downward facing dog. Good. Again, find your steady hands, find your steady feet. Again, this practice, even the asana practice, is meant to help steady the mind, not to spin you up and make you crazy. So if you find yourself getting crazy in asana practice, go back to your breath. Go back to where your steady connection to the floor is. Good. Left leg up and back behind you, down dog split. Nice. Keep your hips lifted and pulling up and back. Bring that left knee in towards your chest. So again, we're working that connection of the thigh to the pelvis, and then take the left leg straight up and back again. Extend out through that heel. So this is what we're doing. We're folding and extending. Bring the knee in again, squeeze in, keep your butt lifting up and back. So it's like you're still trying to take your sit bones wide. Extend the leg back to straight. Again, reaching out through the heel, getting that full stretch of the leg. Then one more time, bring the knee in towards your chest. Squeeze it in like crazy, but push back in your hands and take your hips higher. Nice, Dina. And then stretch the leg all the way back up and straight. So you're in down dog split, the leg straight. Stack your left hip on top of the right with a straight leg. Straight leg. Yep, but stack. I know. Good. Now keep this feeling of the navel drawing in, bend the left knee. Good. And then feel like you are trying to extend out through the tip of your knee. So your inner knee has to lift higher. And then you're extending the length of your thigh. I know. Good. And then point that knee facing the floor, please. Step the left foot all the way between the hands. Lunge. Good. Use a blanket underneath the back knee if you'd like for Anjaneyasana. Making sure that your back knee is behind, or your hips are in front of your back knee. So your back leg should be more straight than it is bent. Good. So you want to be in front of the kneecap if you can. Excellent. Take your hands to the front thigh. Nice, Harriet. Press the thigh down and forward as you round in. Pull your belly back away from the thigh. Lift up through your hip points. Good. Feel maybe more stretch on the back thigh. Again, working the stretch of the quad, the hip flexors. Nice. And now maintain all of that. Let your pelvis move forward a little bit more. So it's like you're letting your knee move towards the tips of your toes. And then stretch your arms up alongside your ears. Bend the elbows wide to cactus arms. And the idea here is that you spin the elbows forward. And then when I say let the hands fall back, I don't mean drop them towards the floor. I mean, just let your elbows rotate, let your shoulders rotate, like someone's giving you a giant double high five. Good. And then as the hands fall back, let your head fall back. Lift your chest higher. And then let your hands fall back. And then let your throat get longer. Lift your chest higher. That's it. Good. And then come all the way back up to stand, all back up to upright. Sorry. Release the hands to the floor. Hard to come to standing from there. Downward facing dog. Lift the back knee. Do what I mean, not what I say. Good. Slide forward to plank pose, please. Nice. Good. So come all the way into that plank pose. So armpits forward over the wrist. Good. And then you're dropping just the right knee down towards the floor. So touch your right knee to the floor and then straighten the leg again, back to plank. And then touch your left knee down to the floor and straighten it back to plank. Good. Right knee touches down, back up to plank. Left knee touches down, back up to plank. Keep your low belly engaged. Keep your hips lifted in line with your shoulders. Just keep alternating. Right knee down, left knee down. I'll tell you when to stop. Keep going. Good. Go with your breath. Don't do it as fast as you can because you think that's better. Do it consciously, feeling the fold of the leg with the pelvis. I know. All right. Come on back to your plank pose. Press back, downward facing dog. Nice. Drop down to your knees, please. Take your child's pose. Let your knees go wider this time if you'd like. Hips back to your heels. Yeah. So it is often true that in these stories where the bow is mentioned in this very metaphoric way, of course, it's what every kind of ancient warrior tends to use. So it's a metaphor there, you know, of course, it makes sense for the world that the tradition came up in. But many times the contest, the archery contest that prove this mastery is involving marriage proposals, right? So it's princesses that their marriage hand is won by these archery contests. And so the hero of the story has to be able to succeed in that mastery. And with any yogic stories, we can look at this on that basic level of like, okay, like it's a medieval love story, quote unquote. But anything yogic is you can also look at that marriage is always the bringing together of masculine and feminine. So it's not just a physical representation, but it's also that awareness of there being a wholeness and a completeness when those two opposites come together. And what allows you to feel that in yourself? Mastery over the mind. Meditation. Brings everything together. Walk your hands back in, please. Good. Come on up into a high kneeling position again. So from hands and knees. Good. Come back into that high kneeling position. Nice. And then hands come to your lower spine or to your sacrum again, pressing the palms into the sacrum. Hug the elbows towards each other. Same thing. Tops of the thighs go back. Low belly draws in and up. Good. Get super tall through your spine. Again, toes can be tucked or untucked here, your choice. So start with that hinge again, hinge back, and then pause right at that point where everything is on fire. And then lift your chest higher. Start to bring it into more of that freeform camel where you're not reaching for your feet. Keep pushing down through your shins. Lengthen your thighs like you're drawing your knees longer away from your hips and your hip bones up away from your thighs. Good. Navel back and in. Beautiful. Pull all the way back up. Nice job, you guys. Release the hands down to the floor, hands and knees. Yep. And then come into downward facing dog. Good job, you guys. All right. Step the right foot forward in front of you, lunge. Good. Drop the back heel. Baby toe parallels the back of your mat. Take the arms up to warrior two. Good. Turn your palms to face up towards the ceiling. Bend your elbows, place the tips of your fingers to the tops of your shoulders, and then start to make circles with the elbows, circling the shoulders. Good. Again, the arm position is on purpose because with that folding of the arm, you get to stretch the wrist all the way through the forearm, which we don't often pay attention to. Nice. And then come back to stillness, please. Lift the elbows just a little bit higher. Good. So you feel the length on your side waist and then extend the arms out wide, stretching out through your fingertips. So feel like you're pulling your middle fingers, the longest parts of the hands, away from each other. Pull away. Good. And now keep that feeling of pulling away and hug your armpits towards the back of your heart. Yes. There you go. Drop the left hand down the back thigh, right palm spins up and back, reverse warrior. Good. Deep breath in. I know you've been in warrior two for an eternity. And then come back up to center, please. Good. And then cartwheel the hands down to the floor. Nice job. Lift the back knee. Good. Sweep that right leg up and back behind you. Down dog split. Excellent. Bend the right knee. Kick your heel in towards your butt. Stack the right hip on top of the left and start to circle that knee. Good. And whenever we're working with back bending, lower back especially, is that the hips have to do some opening. Otherwise, we get into all sorts of issues where the lower spine is restricted, not because of the back itself, but because of the hips. Good. Lift and open that hip. Pause. Nice. And then bring that right knee forward and wide for pigeon. So bring the right knee towards your right wrist. Good. Sending your left hip spinning forward just a little bit more. And then once you've set your pelvis nice and level, right and left side, then go ahead and walk your hands forward, come into whatever resting version of pigeon you would like to be in. So you can come down to blocks or forearms. You can collapse like a puddle onto the ground if that's what your pose usually looks like. And sometimes it does. So we used to say, and probably lots of people still do, is that pigeon is a hard pose to be neutral about. You either love it or you love to hate it. Usually it's one of those. Then there's those rare people that are truly put together, just like held by rubber bands that just fall into the pose and they're like, what? My younger sister is one of those, so it's eternally frustrating to me. Where does your mind go in a pose like this when there's that ease of going into an extreme? Can you stay in that place where you can at least acknowledge that there is still that wholeness? So even if your mind is tending towards one place, can you also acknowledge that if there's a sun, there's also a moon? If there's light, there's also dark. If there's outer, there's also inward. If there's illusion, there's also truth. So one does not negate the other. One becomes full comprehension of the other. And this is meditation, where all things that we consider to be separate become unified, becomes one. And your mind is no longer looking for the differences. It's just seeing how everything is interconnected. Good. One more breath in your pigeon pose. And start to walk yourself back up onto your hands. Good. So if you are able to here, bend your left knee, kick your heel in towards your butt, and then reach back. I'm going to suggest the same hand, so just a regular old quad stretch. But if you really want the twist, you can, of course, reach with the other hand. But my suggestion is reach with the left hand for the left ankle. Good. And then practice here this feeling of bend your elbow a little bit. And as you bend your elbow and you draw the arm bone up and in towards the chest, turn your ribs forward again as much as you can. And then kick your foot gently back into your hand and root down through the tip of that knee. Yeah, suddenly you're like, oh, there's my quad. I know what that is now. Beautiful. One more breath, chest lifts. Nice area. And then go ahead and release the foot, please. Nice, Becca. You're not Becca. Dina, sorry. Saw that name first. Tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, downward facing dog. Excellent, you guys. Vinyasa, if you'd like, child's pose if you prefer. So if you're doing the vinyasa, come forward to plank. Lower down slow to your belly or through chaturanga. Come forward into cobra or upward facing dog, depending on where you are. And then downward facing dog, tuck the toes, lift the hips. Good. Left foot steps forward between the hands, lunge. Back heel comes flat, baby toe parallels the back of your mat, warrior two. I know, rushing to pigeon. Yeah, anything that's close to the ground. Turn your palms to face up, please, in your warrior two. Take the tips of the fingers to the tops of your shoulders. Start to circle your elbows in the other direction. So if your natural instinct is to go one way, go the other way. Good. Keeping the legs steady, moving the arms. And if we focus our attention preparing for bow pose in only one place, we are ultimately going to get stuck in the other, right? So if we do nothing for the shoulders, that's where we're going to get stuck in the pose. If we do nothing for the lower back or the legs, that's where we're going to get stuck in the pose. So it's the places where you pay no attention in your life that are going to be the places you get stuck. Good. So this sort of unifying energy is the whole body is involved in bow. Whole body is involved in every pose, really. Take your arms out wide, please. Good. Feel again that stretch through the tips of your fingers. So pull the arms out and then feel the armpits squeezing in. That's it. Good. Right hand drops down the back leg, left palm spins up and back, reverse warrior. Nice, you guys. And then float the arms back to letter T. And then cartwheel the hands down to the floor. Nice job. Spin your back heel up. Swing that left leg up and back behind you into down dog split. Good. Bend the knee. Take your heel in towards your butt. Stack the left hip on top of the right. And then start to make circles with that knee. Again, rotating the thigh so that you get that mobility in the hip. You create a little space in the hip. Good. Nice, you guys. And then lift and open, pause. Nice little fire hydrant. And then go ahead and bring that knee forward and wide. Find your pigeon pose on the second side. So the knee goes wider than your hip point. And then your right hip point spins forward so that both sides of your pelvis are level with each other. Good. Once you set your pelvis in a nice place, press through your front shin, walk the hands forward, take whatever your resting arm position is. So in the spirit of it being the week of Valentine's Day, it is one of my favorite stories of Shiva and Parvati. That involves Kama, the god of desire. And the story goes that, Parvati is born, and from the moment she is born, her family is one that is already in service to Shiva. So she knows him from the moment that she's born. And she knows pretty much from a very young age that he's the one for her. So her whole thought is on serving him. Ultimately, she wants to marry him. But Shiva, being Shiva, is busy meditating and is paying no attention whatsoever. And what did I say? The places where you pay no attention in your life is where you're going to get stuck. So he's paying no attention whatsoever to how much she wants to be with him. And the gods really want Shiva to stop meditating and start doing his job. So they think that it's a great idea if he has a wife. And he's like, well, then he'll participate. So let's do what we can to get Parvati and Shiva together. And so they hatch this crazy scheme that Kama is going to go shoot his arrow of desire at Shiva in meditation. And when he opens his eyes, there will be Parvati and he'll fall in love with her and, want nothing but her. And then that'll be end of that, right? Perfect love story. Deception and coercion, perfect love story. Take one more breath in your pigeon pose. You can just imagine how this all went. Because the spoiler, right, is that Kama gets burned to ashes. So walk yourself back up onto your hands. Good. If it's possible, bend your right knee so you can bring your heel in towards your butt. Really push through that left shin so you're supporting your pelvis from the leg that is on the ground. And then my suggestion again is to reach back with the right hand for the foot or the ankle. So don't go for the twist unless you really feel like you have to, so that you get this feeling of still trying to square your ribs and your hip bones towards the front of your mat while you are holding that foot. Bend your elbow slightly. So again, you have to move the arm bone up and into the shoulder. And then as you kick your foot into your hand, press down and forward through the tip of that knee. So almost like that back thigh is going to pull up and into the pelvis. Good. Nice, you guys. And then slowly release the foot. Excellent. Place the hands back down to the floor. Come back to downward facing dog. Lift the back knee. Good. And then bring yourself forward to plank pose, please. Lower down slow, coming through knees if you need. Good. Rise up, Cobra. Lift head, neck, and chest, dragging back on the hands, pressing down into your feet. Good. And then in your Cobra, if your arms are pretty straight, bend your elbows a little bit more. So you're kind of halfway to where you could be. Good. Squeeze those upper arms again, almost like you're doing camel, and then lift the collarbones even higher and feel as though you are, as you're squeezing your elbows in, trying to broaden your upper back, and then lift through the back of your throat, drop your chin to level. Yeah. Good. And then slowly release all the way down to your belly. Nice, you guys. Stretch your right arm out wide to the right, straight out from your chest or straight out from the shoulder, palm facing down. You got it. And then you're going to start to roll onto your right hip. Good. Stacking the left leg on top, so it's a shoulder stretch. Yep. So roll all the way over until you have what feels like your tolerable amount of stretch on that arm. Top leg can step back behind you if that's easier for balance. You can bend the knee so the foot can come to the floor. Good. If that left arm wants to reach behind you in a little bind along the lower back, you can do that. Or you can stretch the left arm all the way out as though you're going to take it onto the right hand. Nice. Good. So the idea is you're stacking the hips, breathing through that front of the shoulder. So of course, this causes this plan that they had concocted as they go to try to do it, and Kama shoots his arrow. And in one version of the story, arrow hits Shiva and he is distracted out of his meditation and is just annoyed that something bothered him. And they say that he, notices Parvati, but the arrow has no effect. He's just annoyed. And in some, it says that it planted this little seed of desire, but that because it's Shiva, it has very little effect, right? Anyway, he's annoyed that someone has bothered him out of his meditation. And so when he opens his eyes, he sees Kama there, and he opens his third eye, and Kama is burned to ashes. And then Shiva continues to ignore Parvati, closes his eyes, goes back into meditation. And poor Parvati is kind of crushed. So what do you do when you feel real bad? You go home and eat some ice cream, right? No, not Parvati. Take one more breath here. And then slowly release, coming back onto your belly. Good. Take your forearms underneath you for Sphinx Pose before you go to the second side. So forearms flat to the floor, elbows underneath your shoulders. Press down into the hands or into the forearms. Tuck your toes, please. And then lift your hips up. Come back to that forearm plank for a moment. Good. Try not to let your butt come higher than your shoulders. So really focus on that forward and backwards. Let yourself shift your weight forward and back again, just like you did when you started on hands and knees. Shifting the weight forward and back, keeping your hips low, level with your shoulders. So a little higher for you, Aparna. You're a little too low. There you go. Nice, you guys. Nice. Then find what feels like the middle. Pause for a breath. Chest up, throat up. Good. And then release the knees down to the floor. Come all the way down to your belly. I know. No. Left arm out wide to the left. No pillow with hands. Left arm out wide to the left, palm facing down. Roll onto that left hip, please. So stacking the legs. This is not yin. This is not yin. If we stay long enough, anything is yin. Good. Again, top leg can step back behind you if you'd like. Your right arm can come back behind you into a bind. So turning the palm back and letting the arm rest along the lower back. Lots of options. So Parvati, instead of deciding that there was some way that she should, feel bad about what happened, decides that in order for Shiva to notice her is that she would just become as huge as he was. She says, I'm going to become the kind of person that he would notice. So she goes off into the jungle and she becomes a yogi. Starts her own tapas practice, her own focused discipline of building her own prana, her own energy. And this is where they say that in his deep meditation, that Shiva starts to become aware of this bright, fierce, burning energy. And in the depth of that meditation, he says, what is that? I've got to know what that is. And that's what draws him out. And so here's where some versions say, well, that little seed of desire is what convinced him that he had to come out of meditation. But he's drawn to this energy. And so he follows the feeling of it, source of it, finds Parvati in the woods doing her practice and decides to just see what she's all about. So presents himself, turns himself into a wandering monk, a hermit, and goes up and starts to ask her what she's doing there, that she's far too beautiful to be hanging out in the woods. And there are strange people about, and, what is she doing? She could be doing anything else. And she kind of is ignoring him, and more that he's talking to her, he's talking to her about her practice and what she's doing. And so she tells him that she's in service to Lord Shiva. And he's like, Shiva, what do you want from that dummy? Disreputable guy. He's a waste. Terrible. Don't waste your time on him. She becomes furious that someone would talk about Shiva that way. And so in her anger, she basically tells him, like, don't talk about my Lord that way. You don't know him. Get out of here. And so he is convinced of her, that she understands truly who he is. And so he reveals himself. And then, of course, there's the falling in love moment and all of that. So desire might be the spark that moves the mind in a direction. But if it can't see beyond that desire, it will only be a place of stuckness. One more deep breath. Good. And then slowly release, coming back onto your belly. Planting the forearms underneath you again, elbows bent in Sphinx Pose. The thing is, I can't let you rest. We've got too much to do. We've got somewhere to get to. Come back into forearm plank, please. So pressing down through the forearms. And again, if making that cup with the hands feels like it is easier on the shoulders, you can interlace the fingers, make a cup with your hands. Press down into the forearms, tuck your toes, lift your hips, come back into the forearm plank. Good, feeling the tops of the thighs, pulling forward, feeling your heels drawing back, lift the back of your throat. Good, and then start to walk your feet forward towards your elbows any amount, lifting your hips higher. Continue to press down through the forearms, let your head hang so it's in line with the spine. Again, important for bow pose that we don't get into that thought that back bending comes from our neck. It does not. Good, keep walking the feet forward up on your tippy toes. Nice. One more deep breath. Good, and then walk the feet back, please. Dropping the knees to the floor, press back child's pose. Nice, you guys. Right, so the nature of the things that you desire, the things that you love, is that if you always let it stay on that surface level, is maybe you will enjoy them briefly. Maybe it will be something that feels fulfilling briefly. But it may be part of your illusions. It might be part of something that becomes painful. And I truly believe that in the story that if Parvati in that moment, if it had worked right away, where Shiva just fell in love with her, is that she would always have questioned, did he really care about her, or was it just because of Kama's arrow? Was she really worthy? Did she really think of herself as being the person that belonged with Shiva? So the magnificence of the world is that it gives our mind everything that it needs to expand beyond its limitations. But it's up to us to actually step over those lines. That's why we practice, to convince ourselves to keep stepping over those lines. Walk yourself back up onto hands and knees. A yogic love story full of all sorts of sillies. Good. Stretch your right leg up and back behind you in line with your hip. Nice. Good. Stretch your left arm in front of you in line with your shoulder. Good. Pull up through your low rib cage. Take your left arm higher, lifting the armpit, starting to lift your chest higher up, almost like you're doing that cat-cow position. Kick your thigh a little bit higher without pushing your pelvis forward. And now bend your right knee, just kick your heel and keep reaching your left arm up higher. Good. Now reach the hand back to find the foot or the ankle, keeping that height, keeping that lift through your shoulders. My point is don't collapse just because you're holding the foot. Continue to lift from your chest, lift from your thigh. Feel as though you're digging the tip of your knee down. Yeah. And lift your shoulder higher. Excellent. Long throat. Drop your chin, lift your throat. Good. And then extend all the way back out. Long leg, long arm. And then release back to hands and knees. Good. Give yourself a little wiggle if you need a wiggle. There you go. Nice mark. And then try the second side. Please take your left leg up and back behind you, toes tucked. Walk the right arm forward in front of you. So again, you're finding this experience of the length of your spine, very level. Draw your rib cage in. Lift that right arm higher. So I'm starting with the upper body because most of us are tighter here, or we struggle to get into this part of the back bend and bow. We get stuck in our shoulders. So lift that arm higher. Really get into that feeling of I'm lifting my chest up, collarbones up. Good. Now bend your left knee, kick your heel, and don't reach for the foot right away. Just lift the thigh higher. Keep lifting your right arm higher. Good. And keep your chin level to the floor, but press up through the back of your throat. So it's like you're going to take your heel to the back of your heart. Good. Now reach back for the foot or the ankle, finally. So that the benefit there is you get more out of the lift of your shoulder and your thigh. Not that you're using your hand and foot to make the pose. Keep lifting from your thigh, lifting from your chest. Nice, Lindsay. Good. Extend all the way back out, arm and leg. Really nice area. Good. And then release back to hands and knees, please. Do a little hip circling. Good. Circle your hips the other way. right? The things that you are able to find love and appreciation for on multiple levels, right? Those are the things that have the lasting presence in our life. And this is what creates that soothingness for the mind, is when it's not always in that state of temporary. It's not always in the state of the immediate pleasure or displeasure. Right? To love something on that deeper level means that you have to perceive it as more than just the surface of what you think you want or what you don't want. Come back to stillness, please. And this is mastery over the mind, right? It's not the mind's fault that what we give it all the time is little bits and pieces. It wants to go deep. Let it go deep. Good. Come into downward dog just for a breath. And stretch out through the shoulders. And then come forward to plank. Lower all the way down onto your belly. Nice. Point the toes back behind you. Stretch your arms reaching back in the direction of your feet, palms facing down. The legs are straight. Good. Yep. So coming through Locust Pose first. So if you were in the class I did on Locust Pose a week ago or 2 weeks ago or whatever, try to remember all of that. So feel yourself lifting up through your lower ribs, press down through the edge of your pubis bones, the lowest part of your pelvis. Good. And then extend out through the legs, lift the legs up off the floor, begin to lift your upper body forward and up, and already drop your chin level with your chest. Feel the back of your throat get longer. Feel the top of your head push forward. Good. Float your arms up higher. Good. Let your arms go as wide as they want to go, but lift them higher. Good. Feel your chest lifting higher. Turn your palms down. Good. And now bend your knees. Don't reach for your feet. Just bend your knees and feel yourself lifting from your thighs and lifting from your armpits. That's it. Long throat. Good. And then extend the legs back to straight and release back to your belly. Make a pillow with your hands and rest. Oh my gosh. Yes. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Even in the height of craziness of the world, there's a place in me that is eternally in stillness and equanimity, that is never separate from pure awareness. It's the Shiva inside. So mastery over the mind doesn't mean that we change what the mind is, but it means we learn to use it to its fullest capacity. If you give it the opportunity to go deep below the surface, as it will. Like they say in another metaphor of the mind is that who's driving the chariot, right? Who's driving the mind? Is it your ego that only wants what it wants and doesn't want what it doesn't want? Or is there that awareness or perception of something bigger? Whatever word you want to use to describe that. All right, here we go. Plant your hands alongside your ribs. I say that, but here's one more preparation. Plant your hands alongside your ribs like you would for Cobra. Pressing down into the hands. Good. Bend your knees, kick your heels in towards your butt. Press down through those tips of the knees. So as you press down, the tops of your thighs of your butt are going to feel like they pop up a little bit. Good. Don't lose that. Scoop into your low belly. Try to press your pubis bone down and forward, just like you did in Locust Pose. And now drag back on your hands. Start to lift head, neck, and chest. Good. Rooting down through the knees. Hips can come up off the floor here. So you're rising up into Cobra, but keep your knees bent and pressing down. Good. Keep your pubis bone drawing forward, but draw the ribs up and in. Chest wide, throat long. So turn to hug those elbows in, chest open. Nice. You got it, Lisa. You got it, Mark. Nice, Dana. And then slowly release the chest back to the floor. I know. Pause for just a breath. Good. And then here we go. So you can either come into the pose like we did before through Locust. So you can come up into Locust, and then when you bend the knees, this time you'll have the opportunity to reach back for your ankles or your feet. Or on your belly, you can bend your knees, kick your heels in, and reach for your feet here. So if typically you cannot reach your ankles in this position because your knees or thighs or any other part doesn't allow it, then come through Locust Pose. And if you don't reach for your feet, no problem. You can still find the full expression of the pose without holding the feet. Good. If you're holding your feet on your belly, make sure that your knees are not wider than your hips. So you're drawing your knees in. Good. If you're coming through locust, legs are straight, reach the arms back behind you. Good. And then start to, if you have hold of your ankles, again, press down through the tops of the knees just a little bit, feel your butt rise up, and then scoop the belly, draw the pubis bone down and forward, pull up through your lower rib cage, bend your elbows just a little bit. So as you start to rise up, it's your chest rising, your back rising, and your thighs rising. And then let your feet kick into your hands. Feel as though you drag down with the tips of your knees. Good. Keep the elbows slightly bent so that you can really get that lift of your chest, and then drop your chin, press through the back of your throat. Good. If you feel fantastic here, rock forward and back on your belly. Good. If you felt fantastic and then you did that and it felt miserable, then come back to stillness. Good. And then one more breath, hug those knees in. Again, feel the lift of the thighs, of the heart, both directions. And then slowly release. Make a pillow with your hands and rest. Ay, ay, ay. Nice if you're making that pillow with the arms crossed and the forehead resting. Another little stimulation for that third eye point. Right, the point between the eyebrows is the reference point. The energy center itself sits further back, center of the brain. Next time it floats into your mind, there's something you really want. Yourself become very aware of on what level do you want it. Surface level, sensory level, heart level. Is it feeding a pattern? Is it feeding something that you know to be uplifting or something that you know to be confining? Start to observe your desires. Where do you get pulled? Where does your mind demand that you pay attention, and where do you have those blind spots? Because the places where you do not pay attention, you are likely to get stuck. All right, one more bow pose of your choice. So again, you can come through locust if you'd like, or you can come back to bending your knees, reach back for your ankles or your feet. Good. If you're going through locust, legs are straight back behind you, arms are extended. And as you lift up into that back bend, you bend your knees. You can either reach for your ankles or not. If you have hold of your ankles, hug your inner knees towards each other. Again, focus on that lower part of the pelvis rooting down and your hip bones lifting forward and up. This is so that we don't over arc in the lower back. And then as you start to lift your chest up like you're doing Cobra pose, bend your elbows slightly, kick your feet back into your hands, continue to feel your thighs lift. Nice. And then again, for fun, if you feel pretty good here, see if you can roll yourself over the side, right or left, roll over to the side into bridge. Into bridge, holding your feet. Keep going. Oh, there's a block in your way. Nice. Again, you're playing. You got it. You got it. Nice, Dana. Good. Nice, Harriet. Even if you go halfway, perfect. Come back to your belly. If you come into bridge, that's the trick, is come back into bow. The bridge is falling down. Nice. And then slowly release. Now go the other way if you need to. And then when you're ready, find your way onto your backs. Those of you in the room with me, head space the center of the room. Just dismantle your bridge if that's where you got stuck. It is great in a pose like that, though, because what we do in bow and in most back bending is that we push to our extreme and then we get completely locked. We get completely stuck. So it's nice to know that in a pose like that is you're supposed to be able to move, right? These are real variations. I didn't make them up, right? Real variations of being able to massage the belly by rolling forward and back, right? Or being able to really open up the thighs and the back and the shoulders by flipping over into bridge. Right? Your mind is not meant to stay still in one place, like going to the corner, telling it to be in timeout. That's not meditation. It's meant to have a dynamic quality, but that dynamic quality, when it is well focused, becomes like stillness, like watching water that is perfectly flowing. Bend your knees, please. Take your right ankle on top of your left thigh. Lift your left shin parallel to the floor and reach through to hold the left leg if you'd like, or just let the legs hold themselves and let the arms relax. Again, what tends to happen if we overdo in bow pose is that the lower back will feel a little bit pinchy. Nice to help it open back up. Find its broadness. Good. One more breath on this side. As you exhale, pull the knees in a little deeper. If you want to reach your hands further through the legs, reaching for the ankle or the foot, you can do that. You can lift your shoulders up if you'd like, but pull the knees in. So you can get really curled in or just a little curled in, your choice. Good. And then slowly release, shoulders to the floor. Nice. Unwind the legs. Right foot comes to the floor. Left ankle comes on top of right thigh. Lift your right shin. Nice. Keep the feet awake just because the knee, the left knee especially, is turned. Good. The unwinding. Right? If you do get wound up in your asana practice, then this is the time to start letting the mind unwind. And that doesn't mean to let it go back to whatever it was obsessing about before you started yoga class. Good. Find that deeper position. So as you exhale, either drawing the knees in towards the chest a little deeper, maybe lifting the shoulders. You can reach for the ankle or the foot if you want. Bring the legs in closer to the belly. Pull in. Nice. And then slowly release. You're placing the feet down to the floor. Separate the feet as wide as your mat. Let your knees drop to the right and then the left like windshield wipers. Good. And the next time your knees drop to the right, let them stay there. If you want to stack the right ankle on top of the left thigh, you can do that. It feels better to leave the weight off of that thigh than just leave the feet wide. The arms can go out to letter T, cactus arms, overhead, whatever you'd like. Good. So part of just let your knees drop to the right. There you go. Again, if that doesn't feel comfortable, then just stack the knees. Good. And slowly bring yourself back up to center, please, planting both feet as wide as your mat. Drop the knees to the left. Left ankle can come on top of right thigh if you choose. Nice. Then come back to center, please, unwinding the legs. Stretch the legs out in front of you, straighten. Flex or point the feet, bring the legs together. And then arms can come alongside you, palms facing down. You can slide your hands under your butt if you'd like, or if you prefer, you can keep the arms in robot arms. We're coming into fish pose. The elbows can be bent with the hands up alongside your ribs if you prefer that position. Keep your sit bones rooting down, legs rooting down. And then press into the forearms, start to arc into the upper back. So squeeze the muscles along the spine, lift the heart nice and high. Start to let the head drop back so your throat opens. Pressing down though into the legs, pressing down into the forearms. Good. Very little to no actual weight on the head. It's just touching. Again, stimulating now another chakra, crown chakra. Nice. Press down through your butt, press down through your arms. And then slowly release, unwinding your spine. Good. Then if you'd like one more twist, then you can go ahead and draw the knees in towards your chest. And just scoot the hips over to the left, drop your knees to the right. Or again, if there's a more elaborate twist that you'd like to do, you're welcome to do that. You can wrap the legs if you want. Then come back to center, take your hips to the right, drop your knees to the left, or just twist to the other side, whatever you happen to be doing. And come back to center, please. Squeeze the knees in towards the chest, curl into a little ball. And your forehead up to meet your knees. Good. Round into your back, pressing down through the sacrum, pressing down through the back of the ribs. Good. And then slowly as you unwind, extend the legs out in front of you, arms alongside you, find your Shavasana. Make sure that you are warm, even though it was much warmer today than usual. Once you stop moving, your temperature will begin to drop. So stay warm. Not only good for your muscles, but also for your mind to not have to go into that jarring experience of being cold. Just let yourself, again, maybe let your mind flow with your breath. Maybe let yourself feel that the edges of your mind, if you really seek them out, keep expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding. You're not looking for the definition of the thoughts, but the capability of the mind's awareness. Look for that. Or just enjoy your breath. Love this breath for everything that it is. Very gently bring the awareness back to the breath. The body begin to stretch and move in whatever ways serve it well. And as you're ready, draw the knees in towards your chest. Roll to your right side. And take a moment before you begin to push the floor away. Come back to an upright seated position. or stay laying down. Whatever you want. If you are upright, bring your hands together in front of the heart center, palm to palm. With meditation, the harnessing of the mind is not to try and make the mind act a certain way, but it's to give it the opportunity for you to experience the full extent of its abilities, the full extent of its powers, for you to truly understand what you have in your mind. And that everything that is within the mind is part of the wholeness of you. But don't keep looking at it as just the surface level, is that there are layers and layers and layers to be able to see everything inside of you as wholeness, not as these bits and pieces that don't seem to make any sense. So our practice is relaxing and also helping the mind to expand beyond its own perceived limitations. Bring together all of those parts of ourselves, whatever we call them, so that there's nothing except that one truth that yoga says is eternal. And that is that there is only one. Only ever has been one. And you are already part of it. Deep breath in for the sound of Om. Sliding the thumbs up to the space between the eyebrows. Namaste. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your week. I apologize for my inability to carry a note from one part of Om to the next. Oh well, sound is eternal. Have a great night, you guys.
Thank you so much. That was
You are
great.
so welcome.